In 2025, we could be looking at the largest veteran pay and benefits expansion and increase, potentially even larger than the PACT Act. Today we're talking about how a potential Trump second term could affect us as veterans. And we're going to be doing that, and we're going to be doing it by looking at what he himself is currently promising veterans right now. I'm Jordan Anderson with VA Claims Academy. For a couple of weeks now, we have actually been working on a video that sort of compared and contrasted both, general election candidates, President Trump, President Biden, what that may look like for veterans. Of course, President Biden had the PACT Act passed underneath his presidency, and that was massive for veterans. But then this happened.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
So now we're going to go ahead and start with what a Trump presidency may look like today. By the way, the purpose of this video is to make sure that, with all the discourse going around, be educated on which candidate's promising what, and ultimately that way you can hold their feet to the fire, hold them responsible should they not deliver, either one of them. So here's what some of the promises are. Now, just to jog your memory on Trump's first term, because that's something tangible that we can look back on. This is from archive.gov, where he lists some of the accomplishments during his tenure. A couple of big ones of note include the VA Mission Act, which was essentially revolutionizing community care, allowing veterans to choose their own doctors if they were living too far from a VA facility and get specialized care that they need from an outside civilian source. One that's huge to my heart is the same-day mental health services. He secures $9.5 billion for mental health services in 2020 and offered same-day emergency mental health care at all VA medical facilities, which is great, especially for folks in times of crisis. Also, there was a load of modernization that occurred and reduction in the appeals backlog, something which is just a ridiculously long backlog. The Veteran Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act improved the efficiency of the VA and set some record numbers in terms of getting the appeals decided. Straight from DonaldJTrump.com, this is his campaign platform, Agenda 47, a list of promises, but I'm going to go ahead and reveal to you some of the ones that are applicable for us vets and relevant. Here we have a big one. He promises to end veteran homelessness in America. So the details of this is that on day one, President Donald J. Trump will sign an executive order to cut off the funding for shelter and transport of illegal aliens and redirect those savings to provide shelter and treatment for homeless American veterans. So these are referring specifically to hotel stays, things like that migrants can get access to sort of on the American taxpayer funding. And he plans to redirect that to solving and throwing some cash at the veteran homelessness epidemic that really is a massive issue in this country. So I hope he delivers on that promise, because I think loads of individuals will think that that would be a very admirable thing to do. Donald Trump promises to rebuild America's depleted military. It's no secret that the United States military recruitment numbers have really been dwindling over the past few years, especially post-pandemic. So more specifically, he goes into just a bit of detail where they talk about on day one, President Trump will restore his successful America First foreign policy to bring peace and stability to Eastern Europe. So I guess the implication here is that a lot of folks, one of the reasons that you're not getting a lot of recruitment is because, there's not much peace in terms of, there's a lot of proxy wars going on. Certain individuals, especially young folks, understandably may not want to enlist into the military when there's so much turmoil in the world. This one leaves a lot of room for interpretation. It's pretty clear that he's talking about peace through strength, but as far as what the recruitment goals are for how to increase the recruitment numbers. He speaks about a culture and the proud heritage, sort of bringing that back. But other than that, it really is sort of vague, and I'm not sure exactly what to think of it. but it sounds good. And finally, and to me, this might be the most exciting promise of President Trump, even though it's a little vague, he's talking about doubling down on VA reform. One of the amazing things is that they have this concept of veteran choice. So during the first term, you got access to community care where you could go within your community, go to a civilian doctor and get treated there through the VA healthcare system, which is kind of the best of both worlds, right? You had individuals and vets, and it still goes on today to a degree for sure, where they're getting treated like garbage by their primary care, either at the VA, and they couldn't do anything about it. You couldn't really go to a new provider. So that is huge. Ultimately, too, refining and making it more efficient for the processing of VA disability claims, making the funding apply more efficiently to where you're not having these old, depressing buildings for these vets to go to, and also ultimately making sure there's enough hospital beds. There's been a huge issue that I've had reported to me personally by loads of my clients, to where if a veteran needs help and shows up to an emergency room, that they can have a bed available for them. We saw, of course, the big scandals that the VA had to go through this year. What is President Trump going to do with some of the people in power? Is there going to be accountability there? All in all, it does seem like he's promising a breath of fresh air. Again, you decide for yourself and sound off below what your thoughts are. Y'all are an amazing community and very respectful of each other, so I trust you're going to keep it respectful. You always do. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.